Hey everyone, welcome to today's SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home. I'm your moderator, Scott Mantz. Before we get started in today's conversation, please check out the comments section below to see how you can apply for COVID-19 relief through the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, affecting actors affected by the quarantine. So please check out those comments below. But for right now, the TV series is called The Sinner, which just wrapped its gripping and very intense and very surprising third season on USA. I am joined right now by SAG Award nominee Bill Pullman, who plays Detective Lieutenant Harry Ambrose on the series. Bill, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Well, I have to say that these three seasons have gotten better and more intense and more personal for Harry Ambrose as they've gone along. But at the top of the third season, when you were ready to start filming, what were the challenges that were unique to the third season that were different from the other seasons that you did?
Well, you know, this is my first time on a TV series that it repeats from year to year, and this one is the third season. And because of the nature of the program, it's a different cast almost every time, except for myself, season. So, but in that journey that we were talking about with Derek Simons, who is the showrunner, writer, producer, the idea of getting to a third season in which Harry Ambrose is really put into a real risky vice in a way that clamps him right down and he can't escape it. So getting into the third season, I think, was, I was tracking ahead at what was going to happen. And I realized that we were going to do some deep diving, I guess you'd say, Scott.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's interesting about Harry's relationship with Jamie Burns is just how personal it does get. There seems to be more of a connection between Harry and Jamie than with the antagonists in the first two seasons, and it really puts Harry in a very unique situation where he's following Jamie around, going to parties with him. Talk about like the deeper stakes that there were for Harry this season.
Well, I think like all of us, we think we're on a road to trying to keep our whole act on the rails and not go off the rails as much as sometimes we're self-sabotagers, and we can have inclinations that sabotage our best efforts, our best understanding who we are. And Harry's one of those people, I think, from the first season, in which he was really, he's somewhat of a loner. He's not comfortable around people, but it's a weird dichotomy, because he's at the same time, he really kind of is a little awkward in company and a little remote, but at the same time, he has incredible empathy, and his ability to kind of identify with aspects of a suspect, I think, is what both empower him and disable him. And so the third season, in dealing with meeting somebody like Matt Bomer's character, Jamie, he is seemingly presenting very well as a teacher in a girls' school in Manhattan, and a child on the way, married. But his sense of malaise and somewhat of a sense of being incomplete is something that Harry, I think, empathizes with in a way that he probably didn't with any of the other suspects in previous seasons.
That level of empathy that you're referring to, I think that was very evident. It was almost like these two guys like looked at each other in some ways, and they got each other, and that just did raise the stakes for Harry. But what were some of the conversations that you had with Matt at the top of the season when you were developing the season, developing your relationship, because he's just fantastic in this role in this season.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, I knew that Derek would be having really important conversations with Matt, and they'd have their own journey that I wouldn't need to be privy to. And in the same way, we didn't talk really objectively about how we were going to try to accomplish anything, or we weren't talking outside ourselves, as almost as the character. So we were, we wanted to kind of evolve it, I think, as we came episode to episode. So I really enjoyed a close relationship with Matt and enjoyed sharing a lot of things about the shoot with him, and I think in that course of the journey, all those things, the way we bonded in around the set, I think helped in terms of the story.
In the past seasons, you've really worked with the writers to incorporate certain aspects of your own experiences, your own personality into Harry, into the show itself. What were some of the conversations you had with the writers at the top of season 3 to do the same this time around?
Well, in some ways, the first 2 seasons were quite a bit of, they wanted to incorporate things that I had been talking about to them, talking about my past and what maybe Harry had, that was similar. And in this one, I think there wasn't quite so much of that, because this character of Jamie Burns that Ambrose meets is really a thing that's kind of both very similar to him, but also something that he's never run across before. So the shaping of that kind of it's like Jamie Burns fugues, I think, sometimes between personalities. And, looking back on it and thinking back on it, we didn't put a lot of labels on it, or I didn't get into discussions about labels, about what kind of person he was. But there is a little sociopath about him and his ability to be a good con person, but maybe conning himself as much as anybody else. And both kind of self-righteous at times, and also very contrite. And it was the destabilizing nature of all those contradictions in him that I think made it a really interesting part to character to rub up against.
Every show, every movie is different. Every showrunner, creator, every director is different. And I understand that Derek wanted to do a process called a creative dream workshop. And I was wondering if you could talk about that. It sounded very different.
Well, this is kind of thing that, since this is SAG-AFTRA, and probably most of the people are actors, so they appreciate the idea of, and they're not really turned off by things like workshops that do strange investigations that have ramifications on your character. That being said, I knew from the first season that Derek had this training in kind of Jungian therapy that was melding with performance acting. And he did some of this with Jessica in that first season, and I didn't feel like I really needed to be part of that. And I was very tentative that they even invited me. I felt like they were already assuming I'd turn it down, so it was really easy to turn it down. But this was different this season, and I think some of it was because Derek was sensing that we were moving into a lot of the shadow side of Harry, the shadow side of Jamie Burns, and I think he thought, we'll try it. And being kind of pretty special guy, Derek, I think. And he didn't mandate it, but he did make it so attractive that I really was inclined to do it. And the other actors, principal actors did it as well, the 6 of us, I think. And we did 3 days of this creative dream workshop.
So of all these years that you've been performing, like what did you discover about yourself as an actor? How did that elevate your performance as Harry this season?
Well, since we as actors are used to having, that kind of dissonance that you get when you first start a workshop, when you're thinking, oh boy, I don't know if I can pretend I'm moving through Jello again, or some of it is you're flashing back to acting 101 in college or something. It just in terms of who am I being standing here, and you're not a character, you're yourself, and there is that kind of really, it's hard to walk into the swimming pool sometimes, for me anyway, maybe some of the other actors, but there's a certain point in which you really begin to own it, and the process kind of sucks you in. And I think what was really kind of critical about it was the way that it was led by Kim Gulligan, and she really made everything open to what you were comfortable doing, and it wasn't about exposure. It wasn't about everybody digging into their deepest horror and crying in front of everybody. So it wasn't one of those, but it was more about finding physical gestures sometimes for things that were embedded in the story, and the leader of Kim was aware of what the script was going to be for the season, so she directed a lot of things in that way. But then the wild thing for me, Scott, was that I don't think I've been dreaming very much in the last couple of years. I feel like I remember having a conversation with my father when he was towards the end of his life, where he said he stopped dreaming. I couldn't believe it at that point. And I said, "You really don't dream?" He said, "Well, at least I don't remember them the way I used to."
Yeah.
So and I thought, "Oh, I'm terrible. I'm in this situation. I'm not really dreaming that much." And I told her, and she said, "That's all right. We can use a scene from the script in one of the episodes that you want to use as kind of a dream, and we can do the same sort of exercises with it." But at the end of the first day, she said, "You're going to go home tonight. Maybe just before you go to bed, maybe I'll have a dream. Maybe I'd like to remember this dream. Just say that to yourself. We'll see what happens." And okay. And I did it, and I had a Technicolor CinemaScope dream that was like, it must have been waiting to happen. And so the next day was her exegesis, taking it, parsing all that stuff of what was in the dream, which was so interesting. It was a process that really, where you're seeing the dream from your own perspective, but then you go and you become objects in the dream, looking back at yourself.
Wow.
And you're commenting on that. So there's a level that you get to about, and she knew what the trajectory of the season was going to be. So she really was pointed in her, she was really skilled at pointing out aspects of Harry Ambrose that were in that dream. So it wasn't so much about Bill Pullman, it was more, what in that dream is going to be really significant to carry forward is Harry Ambrose. And I just, it was so critical, especially seeing it was this dream that happened in a house that was kind of, I think I fugued at projecting what my house would be as Harry Ambrose. And there was a 5-year-old girl in the dream. And I think there was a lot about that was connected to maybe my grandson, but also about an aspect of Harry Ambrose. It's a 5-year-old girl wearing a tiara and being very playful and mischievous. And he's gotten out of touch with that.
Well, I know this might be kind of a hard question to answer because the entire season, just like the previous seasons, it's so intense, and the pacing and the direction, it really casts a spell, sets a mood, sets an atmosphere that's very intense from start to finish. But in terms of filming the season 3, was there a scene that stands out for you as being the most difficult or the most challenging to film?
Well, yeah, I think, in this season there is, since it's out there, and I guess everybody who's watching this doesn't need any spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
But in this journey of really Harry coming to wit's end with how to build a case against this guy that Harry sure has killed and is ready to kill again, and has managed to elude, maybe because his whole behavior is so asymmetrical, Jamie's, that he's been able to elude any kind of real circumstantial evidence that can be stuck on him to pull him in. And so Harry's instinct is to go deeper and go more intimate and try to, build this relationship in some way, but at the same time, trying to look for ways in which, he's going to entrap Jamie. So at one point, there's a big test about, what it is that Jamie has done to kind of feel most like he is facing his fear of death. And he says, you want this experience, you're going to have to go with me. And so he stands in the woods above an open grave and says, we're going to flip a coin, and it'll be you or it'll be me first. And maybe if it's you, you'll see what's possible with this. Mm-hmm. So Harry agrees to be buried alive in a grave.
Yeah. That was nuts. I mean, I was watching that going I was feeling claustrophobic just watching that scene, especially when he takes the hose out so he can't breathe. I was like, oh my God. But the other scene that I thought was first of all, it was an amazing scene, the way it was acted and directed, but it was the scene when, again, we are talking spoilers here, when Harry does shoot Jamie. It's not out of self-defense. He seems like he's almost putting him out of his misery. Am I right in that sort of analysis there?
Yeah, this is a complicated moment because there's also, it's coming at a time when Jamie, doesn't have a gun. He's not threatening Ambrose, and Ambrose has the guns now. But he's being provocative to Ambrose in a way that he is maybe his idea to be shot. Maybe it's an impulsive way for Ambrose to, like you say, take him out. And also a way, as Derek said, Ambrose has just a flash of a momentary rejection of his shadow side, which is Jamie being almost like a shadow side of Ambrose, and his rejection of it, which I think is, partly what makes it, I thought, a really compelling ending for, in a way, he's broken a code. He's shot an unarmed man. And I think also, if it is his shadow side, he hasn't owned up to it. So it could be, it's the end of a season, but it could be the beginning of another season.
When you, whatever you do, whether it's a film or a series, a lead supporting role, actors always take something with them onto the next thing. So after 3 seasons now playing Harry Ambrose, what did you sort of take with you from the experience? Like, how did playing Harry make you a better actor?
Yeah, that's a good question. You always like to think you're getting better, don't you? It's like elusive sometimes, or you feel like it until you start the next job, and then you go, God, I don't know what thing. But I have just started. I was just starting in March on this miniseries for Netflix about Halston, and I play Dave Mahoney, who's a business CEO of Norton Simon, who helped really provide the framework for Halston to be this incredible juggernaut of branding. And they have this relationship. It's unusual because Mahoney is he's a money man. He's a street smart guy from Bronx, who made his way a far distance away from fashion. And I think his relationship with Halston is almost like somebody trying to deal with Harry Ambrose. It's like that person that has to deal with Harry Ambrose. That's wondering how this is all going to go. But and I think there was a sense of like, I'm so glad to have this part right now, because I'm not ambivalence isn't part of my chemistry, as much as Harry was like moment to moment. Ambivalence is so powerful for him. But in a way, that feeling like I'm dealing with a Harry allowed me to kind of be the mirror side. So I think I carried forward Ambrose, but in my interest in creating the flip side.
Have you talked with Derek about season 4?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also strange now, with everybody's wondering what, looking, what is the world ahead? What are going to be the options available? And I think, for both of us, we are been really satisfied with what we've done, and I think are intrigued to get into a fourth idea of what Harry's journey is. But we'll have to wait and see what USA feels like is going to be in their roster.
I just have often, I've been following your career, since the mid 80s, since I first saw you on the big screen in Ruthless People and Spaceballs. And I just would love to know, like, how has what you look for in a film, in a show, in a role changed over the years? Like, what do you look for now versus what you were looking for, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, I like to feel like there has been a productive change, but in some ways I think I'm also yoked to my own instincts and inclinations, and I feel really lucky. It's not necessarily the career that everybody wants to have had, but for me, I look back and I think the fact that I can take small parts and really get a lot out of it. This movie Dark Waters came out this year, and Todd Haynes' movie, and Mark Ruffalo, and there is a way in which I think, I'm in the middle of a lot of other things. Do I want to take this part? I'm going to have to put aside some things and turn away some things to do it. But I'm so glad I did, and just the journey you can get with a small part is lots of times as rich as what you get with a larger role. And this being, I was playing a real life person, Harry Dietzler, and who was somewhat of a personal injury lawyer that gets pulled into this, case about DuPont's pollution of the waters while they were manufacturing Teflon. But, that has impacted me a lot just during being on that journey. It's a great way to I got on a set and I do fall in love with the actors, in my own quiet way. I don't try not to get gushy about it, but I really enjoy the company of good actors. And there's a lot of good actors that are on that set. And every day you go to the set and Mark is he's quite a good force, sets a great tone, so committed to the activism in the movie. Tim Robbins, oh my God, there's tons of good actors, Mayor Winningham, Bill Camp there. And so you get to watch, you get to see how that behavior is. And then when you go to do something like Harry Ambrose, where you're there every day, you're realizing you're picked up a lot from the other actors that you just worked with.
I have to say too, The Coldest Game is a film that's on Netflix, streaming right now. For everyone who is watching this conversation, do check out The Coldest Game. And, when you talk about falling in love with the film, falling in love with the characters, what did you fall in love with when you first started doing The Coldest Game?
Well, that was a really wild experience because it was a movie that was shot in Poland last year. And it was a year ago, 2 years ago, this year. And I had to take Bill Hurt was set to do the part and then had an injury and they had to have a replacement. So I kind of dropped everything and went to do it. And it was set in 1962 in Warsaw during a Cold War, just as this, tension between Russia and America is reheating and everyone's getting awareness that they're, that we aren't free and clear from that Cold War instincts at all. But I'm working with Polish actors, Robert Pińczkiewicz, who is really, really brilliant and a really great director, Łukasz Kaminski, and then the DP, Pavel Edelman, who did he does so many great movies, and Alan Starsky, who's the production designer, did Schindler's List, but Pavel did all of Polanski's movie and The Piano and things like that. So I think I'm glad that you're bringing it up because we when it got bought by Netflix and seen in 189 countries, and it's a pretty good way to register, but it doesn't get reviewed. You don't get quite the feedback. It's not in the way that it does when it's released in movie theaters, but you do get a lot of interesting people who I don't normally hear from when that I've known or something, but happen to be chess inspired because it's all about it's seen from the world of chess. International chess is a way of trying to achieve détente, and and I'm so glad that kind of movie is finding a home and something like the Netflix streaming.
Yeah, listen, the streaming has been great. Just after I watched The Coldest Game, I watched another film with Tobey Maguire called Pawn Sacrifice, about Bobby Fischer. Also a great film. I advise checking out. By the way, I just wanted to bring up how, when you talk about being able to do so much, whether it's a lead role or in a supporting role. In the last month and a half, I've often thought about President Thomas J. Whitmore and about his rousing speech from Independence Day. We will not go quietly into the night. And boy, do I wish that guy was in charge right now.
Yeah. Where everybody's trying to figure out what they can do to, help in this real, incredibly shocking day-to-day kind of developments happening in the country. So I come from Western New York State, and I got asked by the county supervisor in the county of Steuben County in Western New York State, where I'm from, to, because they were in the waves of this thing hitting populations in rural America, it's getting it later. And it was shocking to people, and the amount of COVID-19 people that were coming down with it. And so they asked me to do a little, an address to people that they would put on their social media. So it was pretty much same circumstance. I'm sitting in the same spot that I did it. And it's basically, the things that we've all come to know, which, you've got to abide by these protocols that were looking to really try to save lives and all that. And it got out there, and then almost instantaneously, it felt like somebody sent me a link to a short piece where it was my speech that I was making in this situation, intercut with Thomas Whitmore's speech to the people, you know. And it was like, you think, well, I guess it's, you know, you can do whatever you want with it, but that was to a good cause. And I think it was great to see it refreshed and repurposed in a vital, immediate way.
Exactly. Well, once again, for everyone watching, please check out in the comment section below about how you can apply for COVID-19, the COVID-19 Fund provided by the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. And Bill Pullman, I sure wish we were doing this in person so we could get a picture together, but I am grateful for this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on a stellar season 3 of The Sinner. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, great to talk to you, Scott.